guys, welcome back to another video. Today we will be focusing on an area right here, which expands into this, aka World War III. Now, if you didn't know, recently a little thing happened where this happened. Now, yes, some of you may be angry, but I did give Crimea to Ukraine. I consider Ukrainian. If you don't consider that, be my guest, but we will be looking at a scenario here where this Russia-Ukrainian war evolves into an all-out world war, including the US, China, India, Pakistan, a lot of the strongest countries. So, first things first, we have to set it to what it is like in present day. They control a lot of Donetsk and Luhansk, and they've connected up with Crimea. So, this isn't perfect, but I don't have time to go look up exactly how it is right now. It's actually changing a lot in Ukrainian favor. Soon enough, things might look like that, then like that, and then Russia's probably going to sue for peace by then. But point here is it looks about like this. So, let's get started in this scenario. First things first, we see Russia full on declaring war against Ukraine, involving its people and tell them that Ukraine was doing some random stuff on the border, blah, 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 that's the reason, blah, blah. You know how Russia is, that's what they're going to do. So he begins sending in a massive military to deal with Ukraine as fast as possible. Unluckily for Russia, the Ukrainian army isn't as weak as they had hoped, and they start to get pushed back. Luckily for Russia, they have a nice little ally here called Belarus, and with that they do something very bad for Ukraine, and that is start another border. Now you see Ukraine, they have a lot of divisions. They've conscripted so much of their people. Let's say actually draft is less harsh. This is for their independence, I support it, but yes, they are conscripting their people to fight. But they don't have enough to cover 2 whole borders. They do, but it's going to be a lot weaker. So as we see Ukraine sending some divisions here in the north to stop the Russian advance, we see Russia pushing in here in the east. The east. We see Ukraine begin to fall as Russia begins to spearhead towards Kiev. At this point, Russia also declares war on Moldova and Georgia because, well, we all know that's going to happen eventually. Might as well. But at this point, we also see Russia pushing down the Polish border because guess how Ukraine is still alive? Because they're being supplied by the West, and they know that if they can cut that off, they can stop it. But let's just say a little skirmish happens right about there, and it goes into there. Guess what country this is? Poland sees this as a declaration of war, and NATO has just been activated. And yes, currently Sweden and Finland I don't think are in NATO yet. They're almost a member state, but not yet. But in this scenario, they've already become a member state. This is a few months in the future. So they will be considered on this map. Now, we will also be seeing NATO member states be called in, basically just Bosnia because Georgia's already in. But they are called in as well. I may be missing 1 or 2, but I'm not really focused on that. They'll all join in sooner or later, so it doesn't really matter. But we are seeing a majority of these NATO countries joining in support of Ukraine. They were already supporting them, but now Russia's declared war on a NATO state, aka Poland, article which invokes the NATO defense treaty, whatever you want to call it. And that means that every single country in NATO is now obliged, which basically just means forced into joining this war. And now this has just gotten a whole lot worse for Russia. Like, just so much worse. So first things first, and that's that we see those Polish divisions pushing back Russia over here. But Russia was ready with Kaliningrad, so they managed to push out and circle the Baltics and connect to Belarus and Kaliningrad. With this, they begin an all-out push into the Baltics, capturing a majority of Lithuania and the capital of Estonia, Tallinn, it's right about there, within the first couple weeks. We then see them continue their push into Ukraine, wanting to capitulate the nation before American, Canadian, all of those divisions arrive. Even like West European, France, UK, Spain, Germany, Italy, they're the stronger countries in Europe, and they're not here yet. So for now, Russia continues to push in until they are eventually stopped. They begin a push into Finland, but that is stopped as well. They begin into the Baltics, and that goes pretty well. That goes pretty well for them. Kudos to Russia. They managed to take out the Baltics. But some other U.S. allies are saying, hey, yeah, so we see Japan joining in. South Korea joins in. The Philippines join in. We also see in a second Australia join in. New Zealand joins in. And for now, that's it, but more countries will be joining in shortly. But with South Korea joining, of course, North Korea joins. And with North Korea joining, boop, that happens. We also see Russia eventually calling in CSTO. All of Central Asia, Iran joins in, and Azerbaijan. And that's it for now. Although that will be changing very shortly. We also see Mongolia join in. With this, we do see a few more countries join the blue team: Vietnam, Hong Kong, and Taiwan mainly. For now, that's just going to be what it is. Let's map it out a bit more. So first things first, we see South Korean troops push into North Korea until they eventually meet Chinese troops who stalemate them. We see China pushing into Hong Kong and up into northern Vietnam. We also see China pushing back the South Koreans a bit now, as the Chinese army can overwhelm the South Korean one with ease, basically. Although we do see Turkey and Azerbaijan going through Armenia and into northern Iran, and into a bit of Russia. For now, though, we see Iran calling in some of its allies in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. With this, we see the Middle East get activated. Israel joins in against Iran, so does Saudi Arabia. Palestine joins against Israel, and Jordan joins on the side of Saudi Arabia, so does Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, and Oman, and Yemen joins against them. Now the Middle East is at war. Great, what's left? Egypt. Egypt, what side would they join? They're making better relations with Israel. I wouldn't call them friends yet. I mean, I guess the UK relations, US. I mean, Russia and China, not the best. I'll just leave them neutral for now, but that may change in the future. Although we do see something happening up here in North Africa with this breaking out. A bit of a skirmish up here in North Africa between border disputes, Tunisia and Morocco, pretty big US allies. And yes, I know Saudi Arabia and the UAE and US, not the best of friends currently, but Iran's against the US, so Saudi Arabia's with them. Morocco, Algeria. That's why that is. We also see Western Sahara rebel, although they don't control a lot of land. They control like that much land. The rest of this is already pre-controlled by Morocco. So, let's continue this. We see Libya begin to push into Tunisia along with Algeria. We see Morocco push out into Algeria and capture the rest of Western Sahara. We see Turkey pushing down into Syria and Iraq. Israel taking out Palestine, pushing into Lebanon, Syria. And we see Saudi Arabia pushing into Iraq, while Iran pushes into Kuwait. Iran in this scenario, if you're wondering why they're not doing better, well, it's Iran. Iraq and Syria won't do much. So it's Iran versus Saudi Arabia, Israel, and Turkey. Each one of those could arguably take them down alone. So altogether, they will steamroll them. Also, down here, Yemen. Oh, look at that. The blue team's starting up. Oh, Yemen's gone. Oh. Yeah, that just happened over here near China. China pushes South Korea out of North Korea. Begins to push down the coast. Although South Korea is defending Seoul. So good job, South Korea. You're standing up to this. Down here in the south, China calls in Laos and Cambodia. Along with Myanmar is kind of forced into the war. Vietnam begins to push out into these two countries, taking the entirety of the south, and a border is made up here in the north between Laos and China and Vietnam. We also see the blue team trying to convince Thailand to join, but that will not happen for now. Something that does happen that's very good for the blue team, though, is this. Looks bad, but Pakistan, India, China. India and Russia do have some relations, but with Russia continuing to invade Ukraine, I can only see those getting worse. Boop. Yeah, that just happened. With that, Thailand agrees to join, and the tides have just been turned by this one country. Alright, let's see how this plays out now. We see Algeria pushing back Morocco over here as European troops haven't arrived yet. We also see Tunisia capitulating. Not surrendering, capitulating. We also see the same with Syria, and a majority of Iraq falls. The rest of this isn't even Iraqi troops, it's Iranian who are holding their land, along with Iran being pushed in on a bit more. We see Russia attempt to push into the Caucasus region, which is a failed. Although we do see them create a much better front line in Ukraine, taking a majority of the country after probably over a year of fighting. Over here in northern Poland, Russia also begins to push in, but the Polish army is now being backed by German and French troops, so they can easily, well, not easily, but they can fight off Russia. We also see the Nordics begin an operation here in the north of Russia, cutting off the Kola Peninsula, I think it's called. Meanwhile, Japanese troops land in Sakhalin and take the entire island, preparing an attack on Siberia with America. But down here in Southeast Asia, it's a much better story for the blue team as Thailand is pushing into Myanmar. Thailand and Vietnam are pushing back China, and India just met up with Thailand. So they have a huge united front down here in the south. Very powerful one at that. India begins to push into China. They do lose some land up here in Kashmir with Chinese and Pakistani troops pushing in, but they also gain some land down here, pushing into Pakistan, taking Karachi and the rest of the south. They also start to push towards the Indus River, as it's a very important river for Pakistan, but for now they haven't gotten that yet. Alright, continuing on. I'm just going to skip forward a couple months. This is going to be a long war. We see the blue team begin to push Russia back over here in Europe. As I said, American and Western European troops are beginning to arrive. We also see the Nordics capture the entirety of the Kola Peninsula. Although Russia just basically missiles up here, one road connecting them, about right there. You disconnect them, they're gone. Russia tried to take them away, failed, and now the blue team controls northern Russia. Meanwhile, we see Russia calling in a few more allies in Serbia, Cuba, and Venezuela, who have remained loyal Russian allies up until this point. Sadly for Russia, though, this leads to Colombia, Brazil, and Guyana joining in against Venezuela. Not the smartest move. Also Serbia, Kosovo, and Montenegro join in. Austria joins in. Yes, I know they're neutral. They give up their neutrality against Russia. Ireland also joins in support of the blue team. And now I think that's about all the people we're going to get in here for now. We see a few more countries joining in South America with Chile joining. Oh, I forgot to color in French Guyana. But also Puerto Rico is American. Don't know why I didn't color that in. America will make no failed landing this time, and they managed to take the island of Cuba. Nothing like the Bay of Pigeons invasion. Definitely not a failure the first time. Super smooth, America, super smooth. We see South America beginning to push into Venezuela, going very successfully. The government here is not very stable, and they can't really fight it as they're fighting their own people now. The people see that the blue team is actually a better place to live, that their government is corrupt, and Venezuela completely capitulates, and now Russia has way more enemies over here in the west. Over here in the east, though, back in North Africa, we see Moroccan troops pushing back. If you're wondering how, Spanish and Portuguese troops, along with a few French troops, have now arrived in Morocco, and that's more than enough to capitulate Algeria. So they take a majority of the country, push across the coast, and meet up with Italian divisions that have landed in Tunisia. They take the entire coast. Algeria surrenders. Tunisia is recaptured. I mean, Libya technically still controls these lands, but nobody really claims them, so they'll go to the red team, but nobody's going to invade them anyways. Blue team pushes across and captures Tripoli. I don't remember how to pronounce it, but it's Libya's capital. It's right about there, and it's captured, along with a lot of the coast, within only a few major cities for Libya to still have. Meanwhile, Brazilian and Colombian troops are being sent to Europe, where they're put to good use eradicating Serbia from existence, pushing back Iran all the way to the mountains. If you didn't know, bunch of mountains there, pushed back all the way. Meanwhile, in Caucasia, Turkish and Saudi troops are pushing up into Russia, taking a bit of land. And in Europe, well, Kaliningrad falls, and with that, all Russian supply in this region falls. These areas are extremely rebellious in the Baltics and Ukraine, and losing Kaliningrad lost their only point of resupplyment. So majority of these areas fall back to the blue team, along with a bit of Ukraine, but that has nothing to do with the successful Kaliningrad invasion. So, as I said, Ukraine is being liberated a lot, and Russia is finally starting to panic. But just to add more pain to that panic, we see the blue team beginning Operation Siberia, where Japan lands over here on this peninsula. I can't remember what it's called. I know it's the Sea of Okhotsk. I think it's like that. And American troops landing over here in Siberia. With this, the two fronts meet up and push out a lot. They take a huge part of Russia. Not very useful, but they do begin Operation Okhotsk. No, I'm not pronouncing that right, but it's this lake right here, and they take the entire thing along with the city of Vladivostok from Russia. Eventually, Chinese troops arrive, putting a stop to it, but that really destroys the red team there. You know what else destroys the red team? This. Libya has just surrendered, freeing up a ton of troops from North Africa, and the blue team is beginning to push into Iran. Also, not good for the red team because Iran's one of their strongest countries on their team. Along with that, Pakistan's also beginning to fall as their entire south falls, their front line in northern India falls, and eventually the country doesn't surrender. They're still fighting. A lot of guerrilla warfare here, but let's just say India beat them for now, okay? India has technically won for now, on paper, at least. Casualties-wise, this war has already killed probably a couple tens of millions of people. In a real scenario, all these countries would most likely nuke each other to oblivion and destroy the entire world. But for this scenario, we're just going to be saying that, if you believe in God, then God came down and destroyed every nuclear weapon in existence. There we go, perfect ending. The universe itself told countries no nuclear weapons, and now there is none. Oh, also, did you see that? Iran's lost its coast. Oh no, Iran lost its capital and all of its valuable land. Oh no, Iran was cut into two. And even worse for the red team, Iran surrenders, leading for a lot of blue team push into Central Asia. With this, a lot of countries on the red team begin to say, hey, it's not worth it for us anymore, and they begin to leave. Those countries include Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Mongolia. All of those countries haven't been invaded, haven't really done much, but they all leave, say Russia, China, have fun dying. With this, Turkmenistan falls in a few days, and the slow push into Afghanistan starts, although, as we all know, Afghanistan can't be conquered, so they'll just be left alone this whole time, probably. Meanwhile, India has now pushed China out of their land and is pushing in. We see a lot of China rebelling, rebels in Tibet, rebels in Xinjiang, and we even see rebels in Manchuria. And this is bad for China, as they had almost just kicked out South Korea. But now with this issue, to say the least, they have to solve it. So they decide to focus all their troops up here in the north, where the land is much more valuable, push back Manchuria, capitulate South Korea and push back the Americans and Japanese in this part of Russia, down here in the south. Meanwhile, over here in West China, what West China? I don't know what West China is. I think it's all just India and US troops now. We see a stalemate being made by the blue-red team up here in the Chinese-Russian border. And China's finally starting to see that they may lose this. Meanwhile, over here, we see the entirety of the country of Ukraine rebelling against Russia. And for once, since 2014, when Russia annexed Crimea, this is like 2035 to 2040. This war is very long. Nuclear weapons would be over by day 2, but this war is completely just assault weapons. Missiles are allowed, but the universe has said no to nukes. We also see the Baltics being recaptured, Belarus falling, Finland being captured, and yeah, we just see everyone dying. We see China do a successful operation taking out Taiwan. That just cost them a couple 100,000 men, one of the most deadly invasions in history. One battle, the Battle of Taipei, cost them hundreds of thousands of men alone. Meanwhile, over here in Afghanistan, let's just say, boop. Oh, look at that, the border moved. Yay! Down here in southern Russia, we have the Ukrainian and, I guess Middle Eastern, but no, it's more of a Caucasian front meeting up, taking out the entirety of southern Russia. Resource-rich Stalingrad. Hey, the blue team successfully took Stalingrad, and you know the other battle they won? Battle of St. Petersburg. Now Russia is absolutely dying. They're getting just destroyed, really. The blue team begins an operation here in the north, but this is mostly special trained Canadian troops doing this. Doesn't help them much, but why not? Also, congrats blue team, you took a few more miles in southern Afghanistan. Let's see if that's over by the end of the video. Meanwhile, we also see blue team troops pushing here into southern Russia, recapturing the Korean peninsula, and beginning their push into China. Yeah, that just happened pretty quick. We see China retreating troops out of all other countries that aren't the homeland. The island of Hainan becomes much more blue team, and northern China begins to fall. Before this, though, China launches all its nukes, kills everyone the world's over, except that won't happen because Russia would have done it by now, but already, as I've said already, no nukes allowed. Universe disabled nukes, okay? Ooh, a bit more progress in Afghanistan. Good job, blue team, good job. We see blue team advances in Russia with multiple spearheads towards Moscow. Basically, everyone's just trying to get to Moscow first. The Caucasians, the Nordics, the Europeans. Of course, the Europeans get there first. They encircle all of these armies. And Russia absolutely gets wrecked here. Russia's just dead. With this, the blue team pushes in a bit more into Russia, but soon enough, the entire country capitulates with any people left surrendering. Oh, the blue team's made a bit more progress into Afghanistan. Good job, blue team. Now all that's left is China, and with Indian troops pushing more into the east, we see some of China's old allies turning against them, with Mongolia and Kazakhstan both turning on China. We begin to see more border movement, with China basically fighting for its survival. Never thought I'd say that about China, but they are. They're fighting for them not to die. The blue team retakes Hong Kong and Taiwan, and all of Manchuria falls. With this, the Battle of Beijing happens. The number one most deadly battle of this war, killing over 1 million people, the Battle of Beijing. But with this win, the blue team manages to take all of northern China, which is huge. Now, it's just a long, sought-out war. China pushes into the south. Blue team takes the whole center. China, why even bother? They retake Hong Kong, take a ton more land, and begin to push into China more and more. Battle of Shanghai. Multiple 100,000 people die. Not a joke, but I think we all know who dies. Oh, and Afghanistan's almost dead too. Oh, 2 years later. Oh, finally, Afghanistan's dead and the war is over. That was something. Definitely something. Here in blue, you can see every single country that has participated in this war. Actually, no, that was a lie. The Central Asian countries also participated. But a majority of countries in this war, you can see in blue now. At the end, we have more countries joining in on the blue team, like Argentina, Peru, Mexico, Indonesia, Malaysia, maybe like Egypt, all these countries, South Africa, just joining in support of the blue team at the very end. Didn't really fight. They just did it for war reparations that they get for joining in. 2000. And now we get to basically just white everything out, draw in the new borders. And we'll see what this World War III scenario did to our world. Now, in the end, casualties sit pretty high. They're up to higher than World War II, about 50 million people dead. The worst war in human history, with some of the worst battles, such as the Battle of Beijing, the Battle of Moscow. A lot of those horrible, absolutely hundreds of thousands of people dying in each. But in the end, we do see the defendants winning, aka the blue team, aka the US and Europe. So as soon as this finally finishes loading and we have ourselves the blank map again, go ahead, draw in the borders, and see what this happened. Also, this is about the most realistic scenario I could come up with. It would have been probably longer, and as I said, nuclear missiles would have been used, but that just ruins the scenario completely, and I didn't want to do that. So let's draw on these borders. Over here in America, nothing happens except there's something that happens. Brazil is given all of southern Venezuela. Guyana is given land across the border to stop the border disputes. Colombia is given a bit in the south and takes the entirety of the north. And a new Venezuelan government is put in place. Cuba is now American. We see Japan gaining this island, all of these islands. We see South Korea annexing North Korea. That's just an annexation. The US takes a bit of land out of Russia over here in Siberia, just for the resources, because why not? And now for the punishments for Russia. They're split into two, basically. Siberia and Russia. This is a new country. This is the old one. But this country is about to lose a lot of land, as we see Finland taking some land along the border. Norway takes a bit of in the north. Estonia and Latvia, they all gain land. Belarus is basically just destroyed as a country. Poland gets land. Kaliningrad is split. Ukraine gets a ton of land out of here, out of Russia in the center here, and out of the south, where they take this entire coastline. We also see a couple unifications happening, but I'll show you all that later. Georgia takes a ton of southern Russia along with Azerbaijan. For Iranian punishments, we basically have what I did in my Middle East scenario, just a bit further. Israel annexes Lebanon and Palestine. Jordan annexes all of southern Syria and western Iraq, and a tiny bit of western Iraq. Saudi Arabia takes all of southern Iraq. Kuwait takes the coastlines of Iraq and Iran. Not the entire thing, just a little bit here. Turkey gets basically just the rest of this, along with a ton of land along Iran. They split Armenia with Azerbaijan, who also gains quite a decent amount of land over here in Iran. And what else do we see happening here? Oh yeah, India. India gets a ton of southern Pakistan, a bit along the border. Their full claims on Kashmir, however you define those, along with some land across the Chinese border. They gain full control of this land along with a bit of extra. They take about half of Myanmar. The other half is given to Thailand. Well, this part is given to Thailand, who's also given a piece of Laos. And Cambodia, the rest is given to Vietnam. Who also gets a bit of Myanmar and a bit of China. Quite a bit of China, actually. Hong Kong is set up as a new country. And Taiwan annexes China. But not this China. Because we have to punish China. First things first, Mongolia gets a bit of land in certain spots. So does Kazakhstan, since they switched sides in the end. Not a lot, not very valuable, but hey, worth mentioning. Then we see Tibet being released as a new country. Xinjiang being released as a new country. We see Manchuria being released as a new country. And we see this being what's now left of China. But they will be given all of this up. This tiny piece of Myanmar, as that isn't a country. That's a little piece of land with no cities in it, just rainforest. Couldn't survive a day. As for Yemen, Oman gets some land. The rest of it goes to Saudi Arabia. Over here in Africa, Morocco's turned into a much larger country. Tunisia gains a lot of coastline from Libya and Algeria, although Libya is allowed to barely keep Tripoli. It's like right there. Barely keeps it, but Libya does own Tripoli still, which is very good for them. Over here in America, nothing else happens. In Europe, Serbia basically have to recognize Kosovo as an independent country, and they're just turned democratic. That's about all that happens to Serbia, and I'm pretty sure that's it. So let's go ahead and finish drawing in this peace treaty by whiting out everything. As I said, we're also going to be having some unifications. So the Baltics will actually not be uniting. Some people do that. I don't see them as like one country. I see them as 3 countries, different cultures, things like that. But hey, see it how you want. If you're from there, which I doubt you are, but who knows. Let me just draw this in real quick. You also see Lithuania getting half of Kaliningrad. Nice, Lithuania, you did nothing. You were mostly just capitulated the whole war, but got a ton of land. Poland worked hard and got about the same land as you did. But hey, at least Poland got some land. Germany, France, UK, Italy, no land. Hundreds of thousands of casualties and no land. That's just sad. War operations will not do. Ukraine gets some land out of Russia. A lot of land out of Russia and Belarus. Actually, Ukraine becomes a pretty decently large and strong country. Of course, their infrastructure is completely demolished from the war. But hey, they've gotten bigger, they've gotten stronger. Good for them. Georgia gets their land. Azerbaijan. Yeah, a lot of countries were in this war. I mean, honestly though, if a World War III does break out in the future between the USA and Russia, I think we all know who's going to win, and it's our favorite patriotic country in the North American region. Didn't really finish that, but as I said, Turkey takes a ton of land out of Iran. Iraq, that's Kuwaiti actually. Is it Kuwaiti? Not sure how you say that. People from Kuwait, you get that piece of land. They also annex about half of Syria, half of Iraq. Wow, yeah, Turkey. Sheesh, Turkey, you are a very powerful country now. Maybe you can finally reach the top 10. Well, actually, yeah. With Pakistan being weakened and you being strengthened, I think Turkey's back in the top 10. Nice. So, Jordan takes some land. Israel gets all of their claims. Yeah, I'm going to have to use a small brush. Israel may be powerful, but they are tiny. Very small Middle Eastern country. But hey, now they're a tiny bit bigger. Let's give Saudi Arabia their land. Saudi Arabia did a lot. They definitely deserve all this land. Kuwait, maybe not, but hey. got lucky. Also, this half of Yemen, don't even know if they want it because it'll probably hurt them more than it helps them, but take the land, Saudi Arabia and Oman, take the land. Yemen can't be allowed to exist anymore, so it's all yours. Besides that, we also see our borders over here, the new borders with India. India is also probably now the second strongest country, with China and Russia being reduced. USA is still by far the first, especially now. No more competition in China. But India, I'm pretty sure, is the second strongest country. Nice, India. Maybe you can, although honestly, this panhandle is probably not going to last much longer. Yeah, Bangladesh, have fun. They just destroyed Pakistan. They can easily roll you over. Besides the point, though, India is very big and strong now. Pakistan is not their puppet, but it has a puppet government, which is influenced by India, if that makes sense. They just got a new government that really likes India, let's put it that way. You see Mongolia getting their land, which I don't know why Mongolia would get land. They joined at the end and they actually helped the red team a while. But hey, why not weaken China some more by strengthening some weaker countries that can never even try and fight you anyways. Alright, let's give this land here Kazakhstan. And as I said, South Korea gets all of North Korea. Once again, don't know if they want it really. North Korea is poor, South Korea is rich. That's the best way to explain their situation. Although Vietnam, wow, Vietnam, yeah. Vietnam gained a lot of land out of this. Not top 10, but top 20 for sure. Top 20. Military, economy, population, everything. Gained a lot of good land out of China, Southeast Asia, all of them. Alright, let's get this in here. Sorry it's taking so long, but I don't know if you watch other mapping videos, but actually drawing in the borders, coloring in the countries, probably takes longer than the mapping itself. So if you're still watching this somehow, by some miracle, you can just skip forward to once I'm done with all this. That's probably going to be easier and better for both of us. Alright, they get half of Myanmar. Although if you would like to see again all the border changes as I'm doing them, feel free to just watch all this. Then we see Thailand getting their land. As I said, a bunch of countries joined in at the end. They all just get war reparations, which basically means they get money from the countries that lost. That's the simplest way of putting that. War reparations. Right, let's try Norway's new borders. Yay, Norway, you got a tiny bit of icy tundra you won't even notice you have. As for Finland, sheesh, you got a ton of northern land, nearly doubled your size, increased your population by like 10%. Doesn't sound like a lot, but hey, not bad, Finland, not bad. We then also see here North Africa with Tunisia gaining a lot of land. A lot of valuable land too, not just random pieces of the Sahara. They actually get good coastal regions. Same with Morocco, but they also just get random pieces of desert. But hey, Morocco, be happy. Your claim on Western Sahara is finally recognized by every single country in the world, except for a few that hate the US still. But most countries now love the US, love the West. And I think that's going to do it for this video. So, I do hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to leave this up for a few more seconds if you're just skipping to this part. But I'll see you all next time. Bye.